Welcome, everybody, back to the Friar Talk podcast and YouTube channel. So for today's episode, we're going to be going over our top 10 catchers, and this is going to be the final segment of our top 10 series that we've been doing. So if you haven't checked it out, we're going to have these all saved as like a playlist in our channel. And we've gone through over all the positions. For pitching, we just did starters, but went through all the other positions on the diamond. So looking at catcher, Chase, you want to start out and give us your list?
Yeah, and number one, I got Romeuto. He's kind of just been the best catcher in baseball since Yadi's fallen off offensively. Yadi's still probably one of the best with the gloves and the arm, but Romeuto just is a better overall catcher right now. Number two, I have Yasmani Grandal. His average doesn't show it, but he hits bombs. He walks a lot. He has pretty good plate discipline, and he's a pretty good defender too. Number three, I have Austin Nola. I know a lot of Padres fans wanted him, gone and to be traded away. But when you look at the whole catching landscape and everyone that's in it, you Nola's a commodity that you have to have. Guy usually hits 260 and above, calls one of the best games in baseball. If you really haven't paid attention to it, you need to. Austin Nola calls probably the best game in baseball, and we've seen the pitchers benefit from it tremendously. Number four, Salvador Perez off of his career year where he came out of nowhere, hit over 40 bombs as a catcher. We haven't really seen that recently. So, and he had a good year with the glove, MVP year with the bat. I just don't think he's going to repeat it again next year. Wilson Contreras at number five, always a solid hitter, pretty good with the defense. Will Smith lags in defense, but makes up for that. He's a young guy. Think he's going to improve as time passes on. Jacob Stallings, really good with the glove, had a pretty good year with the bat. Can't really say too much more about these guys. Mike Zenino. And I know some people are going to be questioning how Mike Zunino is on here when he only hit 216, but he hit 30 home runs, and he's pretty good defensively. Max Stacy, the Angels guy, had a pretty good year with the bat, or I would say pretty good year for a catcher. He hit like 240s, 250s. And at number 10, I had Carson Kelly / Yadier Molina just because I couldn't leave Yadier Molina off the top 10 list. Guy's top 10 with his glove alone, but his bat is now falling behind a lot. Carson Kelly, really intriguing guy for the almost said the Cardinals, for the Diamondbacks. He was hitting really well. He was in the 260s, 270s before he got hurt, and then fell down to like a 220 average after back from injury. If he is more like his pre-injury, he can easily be a top 5 catcher in baseball. He's good with his bat was finally showing potential before he got hurt. So that's what I got. Honorable mention, I'll throw Francisco Mejia in there because he had a really solid year with the bat. Just want to see how his arm and glove play out in a couple of years.
Yeah, this position's kind of trash. I will say that. Number one, JT Romeuto, consistently been the best catcher in baseball recently. The Padres wanted him. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, and I really wanted him just because of how much of a crapshoot the position is. I know we had Hedges and Mejia at the time, but this guy, 265, 17 home runs, 110 OPS plus this year. So not the best out of him, but definitely expect a lot more from him, and defensively he makes up for it. Yasmani Grandal up next, a guy that actually was a Padre. Definitely feels like another guy that got away from the organization. 23 home runs, 939 OPS, 157 OPS plus, solid glove. He was fantastic this year for the White Sox, and I don't feel like he gets talked about enough. Next up, this was purely just potential. I went Will Smith at number 3, 258, 25 home runs, 860 OPS. I know his defense isn't there, but he's young, and I think it's going to get better as time goes on. It's funny because this guy ended up second in the MVP voting. I went Salvador Perez up next. First off, whoever gave him a first place vote needs to stop voting because Vladdy definitely deserved that over Salvador. But 273, 48 home runs, 121 RBIs. I don't know what his OPS plus was. Imagine it's really high, but he had a really solid year for the Royals, and obviously enough to get second place votes. I know his defense wasn't bad this year, but I've seen film and I've seen it all to know that this guy cannot actually like legitimately catch. So next up, I got Wilson Contreras, 237, 21 home runs, 4 WAR. He gets talked about quite often, maybe a little more than he deserves, but nonetheless, he's still a really good catcher. Still, I don't know his age. I want to say he's still pretty young, but I'm kind of hoping that with the Padres, I wouldn't say needing a catcher, but looking likely to trade catchers, maybe he's a guy. The Mike Zunino up next. Yeah, he batted 216, which is really bad, but he had I think close to 900 OPS, 33 home runs. This is just a guy that, catchers don't really hit very well in general, and this guy is able to hit for power, so helps out the Rays a lot. Next up, Yadier Molina. No, he's not the best offensively, but I couldn't leave him out. I couldn't leave him too low just because this is Yadier Molina, Hall of Fame resume. Of course, so we're trying to talk about the future, but I had a hard time leaving him out, letting him be so low. Still going to be an amazing defensive producer for the Cardinals. Offensively, obviously not the best. Next up, Austin Nola. Like Chase said, this guy calls one of maybe, if not the best game in baseball. Joe Musgrove benefited heavily from him, and I know his no-hitter went to Victor Caratini, but he also threw a complete game with Austin Nola and had some of his best outings with Austin Nola. Mike Clevenger, in his short time with Austin Nola, looked pretty good. Chris Paddock also. Blake Snell, in his time where he had a 1.83 ERA in like a 5-start time frame, I forgot how much. Austin Nola was his catcher, and he still hits really well. It doesn't hit for power, but he hits for average, and he's a solid, like, I'd say 6 or 7 hitter. Next up, I don't have much to say about these next two. I threw them on here if I'm going to be honest. Jacob Stallings and Mitch Garber. I'm not going to say anything about them, but that's it.
Don't worry, I feel the same way at the end of my list as well. It gets tough at catcher. One thing I didn't realize going into these lists is for catcher, I'm much more appreciative of the Padres catching room now. Let me tell you that, like, a lot more, because dude, you can make the case to put Alfaro on here. Like, that's how bad it is. Like, it falls off quickly. But top end, it almost reminds me of like tight end in fantasy football. Like, if you don't have the top guy, it's a wash. Like a couple years ago, it's like you either have Kittle or Kelsey, or it doesn't matter. And there was a couple seasons like that. Right now, that's kind of it feels to me. You got Romeuto at 1. If you don't, we've talked about this. There's a few positions where it's like, yeah, there's a clear-cut one. Catcher, definitely one of those. Yasmani Grandal, Isaac, you brought up, a guy that got away from the Padres. He's put up a very, very good career. Same thing goes for Salvador Perez. I know that defensively he's not very highly regarded, but his like metric, his numbers aren't that bad. He has won a bunch of Gold Gloves in the past. He's won 5 Gold Gloves. However, you don't need to tell Padre fans like that could be skewed a little bit. And this we had a discussion about this. What was going on in Kansas City when they were having their runs that they were just getting handed out Gold Gloves to guys that were not deserving of it? Because you had Hosmer and Salvador Perez racking up a bunch of them. So very, very odd. We just kind of were thinking about that too. But after Salvador Perez, I'm going Will Smith. Yes, he's not there defensively, but he is a great offensive piece. And I told you guys, the catchers they're not putting up numbers behind or at the plate. So got to put Will Smith at 4. If he can improve somewhat defensively, you could see him eventually be the best catcher in the league. I think that there's a case. Obviously once Romeuto kind of moves aside, but he could be that up and coming catcher. Really just depends how he develops fielding wise. Then number 6, Wilson Contreras, or sorry, number 5, Austin Nola. Austin Nola is regarded as one of the best like game callers at the catching position. Now, the thing that makes it tough is there's a very small sample size and he's got banged up behind the plate. If he has a healthy year, I think he'll be a consensus top 5, top 6, like around this range at the very least. So guy that if you're not a Padres fan, really keep an eye on Austin Nola moving forward. If he can be healthy, he will be really good. Chase, you brought it up. A guy that had kind of been talked about getting traded away. really don't want that to be the case anymore after looking at this list, because you got to be a little bit appreciative. Now, the thing is, we need to see him on the field. That is the biggest thing. That's the biggest deal with Austin Nola. So, got to have him on the field, but I'm going to put him at number 5. Then I have Wilson Contreras at number 6. Contreras put together a pretty solid career. And then after him, it's going to get a little ugly. I have Mike Zunino. Yes, he hit a bunch of bombs. Problem is, he hit 216, barely had over 300 on base percentage, and it was like prior years he had like a 230 on base percentage. So he took huge strides, kind of banking on him to keep doing that. Whatever the Rays are doing over there. I mean, we've talked about in the past, but another guy that took huge strides with that organization. And then after that, I have Jacob Stallings, Max Dazzy, and Tyler Stevenson. So not really going to say much on them either. I'm taking the same route that Isaac did, but that's going to do it for today's episode. So thank you all for listening, and hopefully you liked all these top 10 lists that we did, but that's going to wrap it up. We're going to finish up the trade articles here next week, and then we'll get back into some normal Padres talk, and also we'll have a couple guests coming up as well. So looking forward to it, and excited to be talking more about Padres-based stuff moving forward. But hopefully any non-Padre fans like us doing these top 10s, because they were fun to go through to kind of look around the league at the top guys at the position. But that's going to do it for today's episode. So thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you very soon.